Good day, good afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. Hey y'all, what's up? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right podcast. Got lots of stuff to say today, but not really sure where I want to go and how far I want to allow myself to take me there. Make any sense? Nah. All right, whatever. I'm going to get right into it. So, a few things that's been happening. Obviously, well, I guess you don't really know what time, and well, I mean, if you're listening to this right after I recorded, then obviously you know that, you know, what time and space we're in, what type of time we're on. But for those of you who will be listening to this a lot later, I guess you can fact check me. History will tell. It's kind of like one of my episodes, which it's kind of funny. I was listening to it because sometimes, you know, you wonder, and I guess you second guess yourself. I try not to listen to too many of my podcasts myself. I'm really weird about my analytics, and I don't like to factor in. And I know that you can listen on your with the platform that I record with, but I don't know. It's almost like when I'm done with it, I'm done with it. They're like different than, you know, people will say that, you know, all their works are like their babies or children or whatever it is, but they're nothing like that for me. They're just living testimonies of thoughts that I had or positions that I held and maybe still do, or, you know, again, whenever you're listening to this, I may not be here anymore. So you're just hearing me say whatever at this point. I was gonna like, there's this episode. Where's this episode? This episode is not this one, but there is an episode called Fleeting Moments and Heavy Trump Truths. It was episode 162. It's a few back from where I am today. I'm not going to give you like a regular rundown of what this podcast is about. I mean, I guess I could, but just gonna keep it free flowing. So I'm not even gonna walk you in, but I'm gonna say something because something really bothered me today. A few things bothered me today. You know, and I obviously have to talk about it in a roundabout way. I never know who's listening to this podcast. I had I wouldn't say it's an epiphany, but I was doing some searching around the net. I just wanted to see how many different platforms that my podcast is actually on. And what I found out, although my podcast provider, I guess my platform that my podcast is actually broadcasted from, I know that's not the proper word, but the podcast platform that I use to put out my podcast, which I'm sure I could have said that in many fewer words, they recognize approximately 8 other platforms that this podcast is actually on. But with some digging and some research over the last few days, I found out that my podcast is heard in many, well, I guess you kind of know that. I mean, if you're a person who listens to this podcast or has been listening, then you'd know that my podcast is in a lot of countries. But it wasn't even that shocked me. Is when I was checking one, what's it called? Is it Podcast Notes? I can't remember what it was, but all I know is it said that my podcast is on over 30 different platforms actually. And I'm sure that maybe someone is reaping the benefits of that at some point, but I can tell you right now as I speak to you, it's not me. So I'm asking you again, please, wait for it. If you don't like the podcast, but you're listening and you're only on here to bash me, then maybe I wouldn't ask you particularly to rate my podcast, because maybe you're going to give me a 1 out of 5 on Apple. But I would appreciate anybody who likes my podcast, tunes into my podcast regularly, or you just in here for one episode because I happen to, I don't know, maybe the analytics brought you here, maybe the keywords brought you here, maybe the topic or the title brought you here, and you actually like my podcast and you've listened for, let's say, you've listened to any podcast for, say, over 30 minutes. Some are 40, 50. I think I said my average is 46. But if you could please give me a rating, and I would love a rating of 5. But if you only got a 4 for me, that's okay. It's just like, that's pretty much the only way you can help me. At this present time, I think I'm on episode 169 of my my hard work, my blood, sweat, and tears, my musings, my thoughts, my experiences, my pains, my joys, my family, my life. So I'm just asking you one thing. If you don't trust me enough to pass on my podcast to your friends, to your enemies, to your loved ones, to your family, to people who go to your church, then fine, I understand. But I'm just asking you, can you please rate me in Apple if you have? Whatever podcast provider that you're listening on, if you can just rate it, if there's a possibility for you to rate my podcast, can you please do that for me? I can tell you, after 169 episodes, I haven't received or gotten any financial gain from doing this. This is just hours and hours, over 5,000-6,000 hours, minutes of my life, and that I can't get back. And I'm saying, if there's anything that I've done on this podcast that you've benefited from, I don't know why I'm tongue-tied tonight, if you could please give me a rating. Okay, that's pretty much as begging as I can get. All right, there you go. So just remember, this podcast is not a Christian podcast, but it is a podcast by a Christian. So generally, most of my beliefs are, all of my beliefs are, but no, I can't say for sure everything that comes out of my mouth, because, I could be wrong and you could be right? You're probably right. There you go. So when, I chose the name for this podcast, it was that I believe that most of the things that I say are true. But I know that maybe if you've done more research, or more on a subject or a topic that I do, maybe you're probably right. And I'm just doing my best. And I'm out here. My voice is out here. I very rarely cut anything on my podcast. I just give it to you straight as I can possibly give it. So I'm just asking if you could rate the podcast, and hopefully you can rate it high. You trust me enough for that. And if you do really, really trust me, then please pass it on to somebody that you know, and hopefully it'll get one day into the right hands. You know what I mean? Maybe I will never benefit from it at all. Hopefully you do. And hopefully maybe one day my kids can. I don't know. Who knows, right? Something's not popular until it is. There's many people who have had podcasts and who've done songs and different things, and nobody cared until a lot of people cared all of a sudden, right? Or everybody cared until nobody did. Kind of like that guy Andrew Tate. At one point he was like this big thing, and then all of a sudden nobody cared. They locked him up a little bit, messed him around a little bit. Next thing you know, it's kind of like wherever he is, who knows? But anyways, that's just a segue to nothing. But I'm going to get right into it, okay? So this is episode 169, I believe. Now, like I said, somebody was messing with me today, saying some stuff, and I didn't really appreciate it. Actually, it was yesterday, to tell you the truth. But it was my thoughts after what happened that really, wanted me to do this podcast. And I'm going to get into some politics later on. I just don't know how much, because I don't know how much I can really take. So I'll just do the best I can. I strongly oppose the narrative where others advocate advocate on behalf of a community, but prevent its own members from voicing their opinions and their experiences. Recently, I participated in a conversation. There was exactly 5 of us in this conversation. And, where someone was discussing issues affecting individuals from my community, or for those who are generally seen as underserved or overrepresented in I guess discipline, or being put in jail, or if it's school, being punished for behaviors that are seen as unseeming or whatever. It's the best way I can put it. I'm sorry. I shared my firsthand insight, having personally faced the same challenges of the people that they believed that they were helping in this situation. I was the only person in the room who was from this demographic, this community. And I'll say that I'm Black. If you don't know by now, maybe my voice doesn't really say it. I couldn't tell it. But yeah, I shared my firsthand insight, having personally faced the same challenges. However, when my perspective didn't align with expectations and narratives, I won't say popular, narratives that are being pushed right now, they dismissed my input by pointing out that others in my community hold different views and have had different experiences. So they were trying to let me know that I shouldn't pretend to be the end all be all or the spokesperson for my community, because many have had rougher situations. This person not knowing what my situation exactly was, but they knew from just one thing. And I might explain it to you when I finish this little soliloquy, or we want to call it. They proceeded to champion the opinion of another person from my so-called community, definitely not geographic, because the other person doesn't even live in this country, but someone who doesn't even reside, yes, in our country, but whose work I'm familiar with through past presentations and experience. I wholeheartedly support equity and inclusion, but not when they undermine merit and hard work. While being a disruptor who challenges systemic issues, it's commendable at times. Overtly confronting problems isn't always the most effective approach. Many situations require tactful navigation and recognition that each scenario is generally, if you can generalize, unique. Furthermore, the increasing trend of policing social media and silencing dissenting voices, be it Donald Trump or any other individual, raises serious concerns about freedom that people keep talking about, and freedom of expression and all that other stuff. Suppressing diverse viewpoints doesn't foster progress at all. Instead, it hinders open dialogue and the opportunity to address issues collaboratively or in any type of a sensible way. I mean, the way things seem right now in this day and age, it almost feels like the march of, what is it, the Lemmings? I can't even remember if it was an actual book or it was an actual situation. All I know is supposedly you have lemmings, I think in Antarctic, I believe. I think it's Arctic it's the Arctic, I think. That literally all go off the side of a cliff together. None of them dissenting at all. Just, okay, this is the way we're going, and this is the way to go. I've seen penguins do it too. It's like, this is the way we're going. We're all going to jump off of this 60-foot cliff into the ice cold water. We don't really fly, but we're all going off. Why? Because we're all going off. There wasn't one dissenting bird that decided to go a different way, or lemming. And I'm just saying that I will never, never, ever live as one of those types of people who don't think for themselves. And I'm just saying it feels like, people tell you to think for yourself at some level, but it seems like that's even stopped. And to the point where it's not, don't think for yourself. It's, if you think for yourself, how can you think for yourself when this idea makes so much sense? If you think for yourself, you are evil. You are destroying many people by not agreeing with this sensible way of thought and behavior. And I can't agree with that at all. You must be able to allow people to think. That's why we have brains. That's why we have this computer in our brain. So we can think, we can suss things out. And personally, I would rather have people who didn't regularly just agree with me. Now, I know you'll, generally gravitate to people who are like-minded, but you can't be like-minded in everything. I believe if you are around people who you always agree with, then I can honestly tell you that I would be surprised if you've had more than 10 honest conversations, because there has to be some dissension. I don't care if it's your twin and you both grew up in the same house and you were born 13 seconds apart. Even though you experienced the same parents, even though you experienced the same bed, even though you experienced the same weather, the same schooling, you're going to have differencing of opinions. You're going to have different experience. And that's just the way it is. And I think to quiet one person's experience or ideas just because it doesn't align with yours is evil. So let's just say it's Donald Trump. I would rather him spout off at the mouth about whatever. And even if it's a bunch of foolishness and he says 70 things and 69, let's say 69 of those things are absolutely ridiculous, there might be the chance that that one thing might be true. But the question is, do you have enough in you to say, yeah, I can hold on to that one thing? Or do we just put everything out? We throw everything out. We throw everything out with the baby with the bathwater and all that stuff. Advocacy versus authentic voices is problematic. Many people advocate for a community, but silence its actual members when their voices and their views do not align. As I said before. If you're in a community or you're in a group, you don't want somebody outside of the community or the group telling you exactly what to think. And I feel that it's been done to the Black community. It's been overdone. People had issues when Barack Obama, where it was, he was saying that, Black people, a Black man, he can't vote for anybody else other than Kamala Harris. It's like you're not real. I think Joe Biden was the one who said, was it him who said that you're not Black if you don't vote for me? Just nonsense. Absolute nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense. And listen, I don't have a horse in that race of politics in the United States because I'm not American. Yeah, I'm not American. Surprise, surprise. Equity and merit. Support for inclusion should not come at the cost of disregarding merit and the value of hard work. I think I've talked about it on this podcast before, and I guess I'm not going to get that far today. I'm already at 20 minutes. I can't believe it. One time I got a job that I think I fought reasonably hard for, to get into the position I was, to try to even vie for this position. And surprisingly, to my surprise, I got the job. And then I was like, wait a second. And I literally asked the person who hired me, who decided that they wanted me to be a part of their team. I said to them, after a good feeling out kind of session where I could tell that this person was somewhat reasonable and seemed to be very nice and very excited for me to join the team, I said, I just want to ask, because of how things are in society right now, I just said, like, can you tell me, like, did I get this job because of my culture? And the person said, no, 100% no. It was your experience. It was how you interviewed. It was the things you knew, the things you said, blah, 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 blah. So I said, fine. Didn't really believe her. But, I took the job anyway. And I did learn a lot. So it was to my benefit to be able to do it. But I just needed all authentic. I was telling one of my kids that, I used to have a hard time with science. Once I got to grade 11, I was taking grade 11 chemistry, and I had an issue with what was it called? I can't even think what they're called. Anyway, there was the equations that I had to figure out. It was dealing with the periodic table, and there was just certain things that I just couldn't accept. I needed to know why. And what I was told is, you're better off just accepting it as it is for the things that I was questioning, because it would be even harder for me to really, really, really understand and grasp the concept. But the issue is just I had issues with memorization. I'm a person who works off of understanding, and it helps me to straighten it out in my brain so I can actually answer questions on a test, or it will also allow someone like me, to be able to approach things from an understanding, and I can also teach others. So, yeah. Approach, to change while challenging injustices is important. Not all situations benefit from loud, aggressive tactics. Nuanced approaches are often more effective. So you can't necessarily shout down everyone. Sometimes some people need a quieter response. Sometimes someone needs to be talked to. You can't I don't want to say that word. It's probably inappropriate these days. You can't curse out someone, like everyone. In other words, let's just say you're a coach, right? Easiest thing in sports. You can't shout at everyone. You can't pull a guy. Not every guy can take you pulling them aside and shouting at them and telling, what are you doing? Why are you over there? Your guy's over here, blah, 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 and all that stuff. Some kids or some adults, some athletes will get totally frozen once you start talking to them that way. Everything shuts off. It's like when you do that to someone, it's like you start screaming, and say you're a coach. Some people will literally feel like a spotlight. It's dark all of a sudden. Lights go out, and then there's a spotlight, and it's on them. Now they realize that everybody is looking at them. They're the main focus. You're being that loud. Your voice has become a spotlight, and you're hurling things of questions, instructions, and all kinds of stuff. And all they're seeing it as is a spotlight shining on them and lighting up their mistakes, their inadequacies, their mistakes. And basically some of those people will freeze up. Now there's some people that will work for, and they might even shout back, Yeah, I'm over here because this is blah, 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 blah. And they're able to function, and they're able to even play better because it's like you're a second pair of eyes on what they're doing, and they appreciate it. But often you can't do that with most people. There's so many different ways that we like to be dealt with. So, yeah. Let's see. And of course, freedom of expression. Policing social media and silencing dissent threatens open discourse, and there is a space for open discourse. And it hinders the resolution of societal issues. You can't come to the understanding of anything if all you've done is parrot, mimic, and follow. So all I would say to people who, maybe you're liberal, maybe you're a Democrat, Republican, or whatever it is, Democrat, New Democrat, Socialist, whatever. It's really important to hear the other side of an argument. It's really important to get more than one source of information, opinions, second opinions, and don't always fight for another opinion just because you don't agree, or you don't want to agree, or in your heart you just don't want someone to be right. You just don't want someone to be. You just have to be able to allow people to say and think other things than you. And I believe once you get to that place, you've gone far. And you're on your way in some way, shape, or form. I mean, lately, the thing has been the economy. And I know that they blamed a lot of the economy on what happened during COVID. The Democrats generally advocate for progressive taxation, where higher income individuals pay a larger percent. They support increased government spending and social programs, infrastructure, supposedly, and initiatives to reduce income inequalities. Generally, Republicans typically favor lower taxes for individual businesses, arguing that this stimulates economic growth. They often support reducing government spending and deregulation to promote free market principles. And I know that a lot of people argue because they'll just say it'll just be the rich getting richer. But remember, when the rich man and the big companies are not making money, what do the people at the top do? They fire people. They don't give raises. And another thing is, when everybody's making the same amount of money and there's no chance for pay for performance or merit raises and stuff like that, when there's no things like nothing like commission, like, why am I going to work harder than you if we're going to both end up with the same paycheck at the end of the week? Why am I going to work harder if I still have to live in the same thing that you're living in, or doing the same thing as you're doing, wearing the same clothes you're wearing, just because that's what's been allotted to me or given to me? Like I wouldn't even say. So just some sort of commune like this. You wear rags, I wear rags. I may be 10 times better at the job than you are. We both work hard, but I'm able to come up with a lot more results positively affecting the bottom line of the company or the government or whatever it is, but we're going to get the same thing. No thanks. We weren't all born to the same family with the same amount of intelligence. We weren't all born with the same amount of privilege, as they say. Now, I believe if you come from an underprivileged situation, I believe if you work hard and, maybe you're playing basketball and you're 6'5" and someone's 7 feet, or no, maybe you're only 5'7" and someone's 6'5", and you're able to do the same things and come up with the same production, then I believe that your value is as high as theirs are in many situations. But comparing other people to yourself, or having to pull other people down to your level just because you're not happy with what they're able to do or what they're able to make, I'm not for that at all. And that's just me, right? And if you don't agree, you're probably right. But I'm just saying. And that's just looking at the economy and taxation, and understanding that if companies are making money, they will, at some level, even if it's not to the extent that we would like it to be, that money does trickle down. Big companies with people who make a lot of money and have, if you have a good worker and you have a lot of money, you're going to pay them to keep the money rolling in. You're not going to say, okay, I just want all this money and these people can just fight it out below and get the same pay. No, what are they going to do? Or what are they going to do? That person who's really good at their job is going to leave. So what do you do to keep them from leaving? When they put it to you that, I think I need a raise, generally they get a raise. They have value. So you should put some value in their paycheck. Simple. Some people believe, no, just tax the high. If you tax the one rich person, then everybody should keep their job. That rich person should still hire the same amount of people. And they lived happily ever after. And it's just not that way. There has to be nuance in every situation. Just because we're dealing with people, we all have different ideas. We all have different desires, beliefs. There's so many different things I could go into. I could go into healthcare, Democrats supporting, expanding access to healthcare through government initiatives like Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Some push for a single payer system, Medicare for all. Republicans advocate for more market-based healthcare system, emphasizing personal choice and competition. They often seek to repeal or replace the Affordable Care Act. And, I get it on both sides, but I can tell you honestly, living in Canada, that, and having many family members who've had to use the healthcare system, sadly, at end of life. I've seen it from aphasia, Parkinson's, cancer, obesity, and a whole host of other sicknesses, respiratory, asthma, all kinds of stuff. And I really realized that healthcare is not a one size fits all. Now, do I believe that taxpayers should have to take up some of the responsibility for their fellow woman? For sure. But, and I think that, people find there's issues, there'll be, different tiered healthcare. But I mean, when there's stuff that goes wrong in Canada to a well-off Canadian, what do? They go to the States, they go to Mexico, they go to Turkey, they get their stuff done somewhere else. Because they know that, if you're a doctor somewhere else and you specialize in somewhere else, you want word of mouth. You want what's it called? Referrals. So you want to do a good job. Now, I know there's shysters. I know there's people out there who are not doing good jobs. There's people out there in some of those places who aren't even doctors at times. But just to say that a one size fits all, in my experience, no. And yes, we have OHIP in Canada, and we all have healthcare, even though many of us are having hard times finding doctors, and it's probably because of rate of pay. A lot of doctors in Canada have left. A lot of family doctors are not taking on patients, and I've seen the deaths myself from those who are unable to access a family doctor. Some have died because just going into what's it called, like triage place, not triage, I can't remember what the word is, but just those, after hour day, or emergency care, walk-in clinics and all those things, they don't really work. A lot of the time, those doctors don't know a lot. They're very new, or they don't have a lot of time because of the amount of people that they're trying to pack in to their daily schedule. So something needs to be done there. So not totally against the idea of some sort of a, affordable healthcare for everybody, for sure. And maybe to those who can pay for it, or those insurance companies, maybe they need to kick in a little bit more. But something needs to be done. But I don't believe that the answer is necessarily just one straight thing right across the board, because some of us need something that's just a little bit more evasive, something that's a little bit more intense, something that's a little bit more active, aggressive, something that's a little bit more on the offensive when it comes to some of these sicknesses that are jumping on us these days. But again, that's just my idea. And if you don't agree, you're probably right. Anyhow, guys, I'm going to call this one. I have so much more to say, but I just wanted to I'll stop there and maybe I'll take this up again, because there's just so much more. I just stopped there. I was going to go to immigration and climate change and a few other different things, but as I said, I try to keep them shorter. I don't know what kind of attention span my fan base or my audience has, but remember, it's just me and you talking, except I'm the only one talking. And I'm here for you, and I'm thanking you for being here for me. I ask if you can rate this podcast. I would really appreciate it. The more ratings I find or see, the better the situation is for me. And I guess the easier I'll be able to be found. So if you think that I'm talking any sense, or if you believe there's anybody who needed to hear some of what I had to say, I understand that I don't have someone sitting beside me refuting everything or half of the things that I'm saying. I'm just, on a soapbox type of thing. But just my idea. As I said, I was thinking about Americans and their political and their different ideas that they have going. And I said I don't have a dog in the race, but I can see it from both ends. Am I a Trump supporter? I find him interesting. I don't know. I mean, as I speak right now, he did get elected. He hasn't gone into office yet. A couple months for that still. I honestly feel that something might happen to him when he before he gets to there, because they probably just don't want it to become a reality, many people. And even if he gets in there, a little John F. Kennedy Jr., I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. He's very outspoken. He says a lot of stuff, a lot of things that are funny. He's big on name calling, insulting, if people don't agree with him. But I've seen a lot of that from both sides. I saw him and Joe Biden shake hands today, a matter of fact, the first day since he was elected. Joe Biden says he wants a peaceful and smooth transition into the change of power and turning over of the office. And I thought that was great. Now, I don't know if that's the way it's going to be, but it was nice to see that they're not at odds. And, Joe, with what little time he has left with his cognitive ability, it was nice to see that they were able to shake hands and not necessarily squash the beef, as they say, but at least act like they're both mature, sensible adults. Anyhow, for today, I am MCM, as always, I guess. And this is the podcast called You're Probably Right. Take care. See you again. Hey, come check out You're Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 dogs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.